is our pleasure to welcome JP Flaim on set.
What's up, Craig?
Good to have you, man.
I told you this off air. Congratulations on 1 year.
Thank
your
you.
own show. That's great.
Thank you. So I asked, we had cakes on last week. I don't know. What is the day anymore? Time's a flat circle.
Thursday.
Today's Thursday.
The 20th.
Yeah, that part I can remember. I don't remember when cakes was. I think it was last Friday. But I asked him a hypothetical, or not really a hypothetical, but like, think back to, let's put your brain in 2012, right? You guys are at that point a couple years in on the Fan. You've been doing the show for 15, 17 years, something like that at that point. Robert Griffin III is running around, looks like the future of the franchise. And I tell you, hey, man, in 11 years, you're going to be the morning show, not just on this station, but on 980, which at the time we were not friends, to say it lightly. And Dan Snyder is going to sell the football team. Kirk Cousins is going to be one of the higher-paid quarterbacks in the league. And Robert Griffin is going to be an analyst for ESPN, and he will have been for like 4 years at that point. Which part is most unbelievable to you?
The most unbelievable part at that time in 2012 would be the Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Because RG3 was taking over the city. EB says it all the time. He called him RGesus. There were some of us that were a little skeptical. I used to call him RG Screen because I thought it was a lot of easy work for him. But RG3 had taken over. And this city was on fire. I always say this. When people complain about the stadium, they complain about the parking, they complain about the drive-in, they weren't complaining about that in 2012. They were just into winning and the hope for the future. So I think
worth it.
Kirk Cousins was the most far-fetched because he was a backup and nobody was thinking about him.
Except for like Kyle Shanahan, because he was like, we got to draft this guy in the 4th round. Turns out that Shanahan guy's kind of smart. You've been a fan of this team your whole life. You've been doing the show, with these fans, these people listening to you for 25 years at this point. Like, what does today mean to you?
It's crazy. You know what? Just kind of mingling with people here. There's a great turnout here at the bullpen. I was telling people, it's not like they won a game. It's an atmosphere of, like, winning a huge game. And there hasn't been a game. It's just an ownership change. But it's hope. You hear the phrase by doing the show, same old skins. And that's what it's been, really, for the last decade plus, maybe even 15, 20 years, that you kind of just expect this team to be mediocre, maybe worse than mediocre. And there aren't great expectations. And now there's hope for the future.
When do you think it turned that hope died? Because, sports fans are the most irrational group of people when it comes to hope. Every single year, it's the beauty of the NFL, because occasionally that irrational hope is rewarded and people are right. But in the NFL, every year, it's like, oh, this could be the year. People convince themselves by the time January ends and August comes around and camp begins that, hey, we just got to if we get a little bit of health and this guy has a career year and this, that, and the other thing. But it feels like sometime, and this has happened since I got here in 2015, that people were like, I don't know, man, the incompetence of ownership really seems to make it so this isn't possible. When do you think that changed?
It's a tough call, man. I'd say it's been a roller coaster during Snyder. There have been occasional flare-ups, whether it's 2012 with RG3, also the splashy hires. But if you go way back, he fires Schottenheimer after Schottenheimer wins 8 of his last 11 games. And you're like, whoa, what's this guy doing? Then he starts bringing in splashy players and splashy coaches like Steve Spurrier. The hope flares up when Joe Gibbs comes back, but that doesn't even work out. So I think there was some hopelessness that started right around kind of the Joe Gibbs time because, yes, they made the playoffs twice, but he still had a losing record. Joe Gibbs had a losing record in his return. That's a Hall of Fame coach who's won in NASCAR. He comes back, deals with Snyder, and it just doesn't work out. Then you have Shanny. I thought Shanny and McNabb was going to be unbelievable. I was like, West Coast offense, Mike Shanahan. That doesn't work out. So at some point, people get beaten down over and over and over again, and that hopelessness kind of sets in.
It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. JP Flaim from the Junkies is here with us. The off-the-field stuff is a separate conversation. Obviously, the Mary Jo White report drops today. I was trying to read through it in the breaks. There's, new stuff in there. It's not great. We're going to deal with that tomorrow. Today's the day to celebrate. So pushing that temporarily to the side. From a football standpoint, what are the big missed opportunities? What are the things that you look back and, the most frustrated you were in the Snyder era?
Well, again, I'll go back all the way to Marty Schottenheimer because that was a team that was heading in the right direction. But I would say, you mentioned Kirk Cousins before. What if they had Kirk Cousins the last 5 or 6 years?
Totally.
Wouldn't they be contending for playoff spots? Think about it. They were 8-1 last year with awful quarterback play from Carson Wentz, 2-5. awful quarterback play from Taylor Heineke, and they're within a game of making the playoffs. If you just have competent quarterbacking, you're going to be far better off. So I think a lot of the fan base, was torn between RG3 and Kirk Cousins for a while, and Kirk is one of those guys that nobody completely wraps their arms around him, but yet he's much better than what they've had. What have they had? 7 starting quarterbacks in the last 7 years?
I mean, I get in fights with callers about this all the time, and this is not me being like, Kirk's awesome, but like, he's the best quarterback since they won the Super Bowl, and it's not even close. Like, there may be individual seasons of guys. Obviously, Roberts 12. Campbell had a couple years that were impressive. But, like, Kirk's the 4th leading passer in the history of the franchise. That's how low the bar is. It's not that Kirk is incredible. He's very good. But, like, the thing that I think is interesting, JP, if you talk to folks in the organization, is there was something that happened in 2017 that just broke the fan base. Season tickets dropped. Everything just plummeted. Like, despite all of the stuff. And at that point, there's rumblings of bad things happening behind the scenes. Snyder, at that point, had been treating fans terribly for 20 years. Like,
sure.
There's all kinds of reasons, plus the football incompetence, for people to have already been off the boat. And something snapped in 2017 where people just said enough. And I don't think it's just Kirk leaving, but I do think for a lot of people, like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because it represented just the sheer incompetence of not realizing how to even sustain some level of competitiveness, nevertheless striving to be good.
Well, you took me back to 2012 with your hypothetical question with different scenarios, but if you go all the way back to when Dan Snyder takes over, there's no way you could have imagined it to have gone this bad. They have 2 playoff wins in the entire
You want a crazy
Snyder.
one?
They don't have an 11-win season. Like, we joke about it all the time, how much money Dan Snyder cost us, because we get ratings bonuses, and you know this.
Yeah.
When the teams do well, more people go to games, so of course more people want to check out a radio show, TV shows about their favorite team. When teams lose, apathy sets in. People don't care.
Yep.
That same old Skins mentality is there. That's why I say the feeling that I get from most people is just, it's hope. Look, Sam Howell may be terrible this year. We don't know.
Maybe.
He may be terrible. They could go 3-14 because they've got a quarterback. Let's just say, hypothetically, he's Rex Grossman-like and throws a ton of interceptions, and it's a turnover fest, and they're in a tough division. But there's still hope right now.
Right. Well, at that point, hey, sign us up for the Caleb Williams experience.
There you go.
Heidi-ho. You want a stat that I pieced together earlier today. I think I kind of pieced it together from 2 parts of Sheehan's monologue, so I'll give Kevin credit. They have as many ties as they do playoff wins in 24 years. It's 2 of each.
Yeah, and the playoff thing, too. It was fun when they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
But we know every time they've been to the playoffs that they're not a serious contender for a Super Bowl. I mean, the last playoff run, Taylor Heineke's quarterback, he's running around. It's fun. They had a losing record. They got in.
Right.
Other times during the last 25 years, it's some sort of late season run. They get hot, Todd Collins, whatever. They
even
get in,
15 with
but
Kirk.
they haven't been a serious contender.
Yeah, no, even 15 with Kirk, they got hot late. Like, that team was fun as hell to cover. And there were people at the time being like, I can see it building towards something. But I think that was the thing, is like that 15 team gave them some semblance of hope, and then they screw it up. And I think also, like, we almost forget now, Bruce was so insulting to our collective intelligence. Like, when they would come out and be like, we offered him the richest contract, and it's like, no, you didn't. Like, that contract makes no sense for him to sign. So, Heidi-ho, Bruce, see ya. Go. Maybe he and Dan will get back. Probably not. I don't think they.
Probably not.
Like
I think it was Pete Haley that posted the video today.
I remember. I was there for that.
I forgot when Bruce is walking by in his suit and Dan, they just go opposite directions. How good is that?
I have a very similar video somewhere on Twitter because I was there for that,
right.
And someone liked it the other day, and it popped back up in my feed, and I was like, oh, I remember that. What a time. All right, so that's the what has been. Looking forward now. Let's kind of Commanders Josh Harrow's bingo card this. How important to you, JP Flaim, is the name and the brand? Can they build this fan base back if they are the Washington Commanders?
All right, on the Junkie Show, let's be straight. I'm not a Commanders fan. I grew up, my father came from Italy. I grew up liking the Baltimore teams. I root for the Commanders now. I actually painted a bedroom for my daughter, who's a huge Redskins/Commanders fan, burgundy and gold out of the Brian Arakpo Fathead. Cakes does the Brian Arakpo voice.
We'll have to get him over here.
In the spirit,
not far away.
In the spirit of the Fathead. So I don't know if I'm a true representation of the Commander fan base to answer your question.
Well, I'll ask you as you, though. Like, you get to put on your analyst hat then, right? You're someone who's been interacting with this fan base for 25 years. So from your perspective, whether it's your personal feelings as a fan or not, for someone who sits in the seat you do, which you just defined very well, do you think they can?
Can what?
Can bring the fan base back?
Super Bowl, bring the fan base back?
Bring the fan base back with the brand what it is right now,
I
or
think
do they need
can.
to look at it?
I think that the Commander's name, again, I might be in a minority, and I'm not passionate about the Redskins' name.
Right.
I think winning cures all.
I'm with
you. So if they can get to winning, people are going to be fired up. People like Mike Mars wearing a Commander's jersey right now, clearly a knockoff. I can tell by the stitching.
They might.
And,
they're expensive, man.
I agree. But
not all of us make
people
morning
will
radio
wear
money.
their knockoffs and they'll wear their legit jerseys because they're winning. Right now, people are so fired up simply because there's a new owner. Nobody knows anything about Josh Harris. They've read, he owns the Sixers, he owns the Flyers, whatever. They don't really know anything about him. And we may never even know that much about him. It's all about winning. Even the stuff you're talking about, the Mary Jo White investigation, people would have been bothered by that. But had this team been going 10-6, 11-6, 12-5 the last couple of seasons, that would be on page like D8 of the Washington Post if you want to go with like an old school sports section thing.
Yeah.
It would not be a front page thing. The front page would be about a team winning. So I think, and none of us know what Josh Harris is going to say tomorrow. Maybe he's going to go there and say, hey, I'm bringing the Redskins name back. I highly doubt that. I think because of the political climate, it's not going to happen.
Considering the sponsors that pushed it away, no way.
Maybe they do move on and they rename it again. But can you imagine that would be, 4 names in 4 years? Or 4 names in 5 years?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the name is down the list.
I tend to think that, and I've said this a million times, but so my audience that listens every day, sorry you're hearing it for the millionth and one, or 1,000,001st, but the reason nobody likes Commanders is because they associate it with incompetence and apathy and whatever. And if they go out and win, if Sam Howell is awesome or Caleb Williams is awesome, they'll associate it with that and they'll be fine. RFK.
Similar. Wizards.
Yeah.
Nobody liked the Wizards name. Guess what? When John Wall was at the height of his powers, and it's sad, the height of his powers is second round against the Celtics, jumping on the table, but the place was raucous and everybody was into it. Nobody was going, man, this name sucks at that moment.
Right.
People get over the name if you can win.
100%. And it's generational as well. The farther we get removed, if they can build new memories, there will be people who like it because they associate it with happiness. Stadium. That's next on the bingo card. Do you have a place where you're like, it's got to be at RFK, or I think it's smart to go to Virginia, I hope it stays in Maryland? Like, where are you at on the stadium?
I think the dream scenario is RFK.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about the politics. We've been talking about this for 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about this thing forever, and it hasn't moved. So we'll see if the ball moves. I don't think it would be optimal for them to move all the way out to Dumfries, way out there, because I know this. Like, I coach a flag football team, and sometimes I'll ask the kids, who do you root for? And over the years, more and more have moved to the Ravens. I live in Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Right.
So that really should be Commanders country, Redskins country, but more and more are moving to the Ravens. Now, a lot of young kids also come up and they just like their fantasy players. They're not really passionate about
Lamar,
a team.
very good fantasy
But I feel
player.
like if they move all the way out in Virginia, you're going to lose a lot of Maryland.
Yeah, I think that is an issue. The problem is I look at a team like the Niners that moved to Santa Clara, and they're just like, tough. Now, of course, they're in a bit different boat because, they don't have the Raiders, for instance, anymore in Oakland pulling people away, so they can kind of get away with it. Versus if you're in Maryland and all of a sudden the team is farther away, it's easier to root for the Ravens.
Again, to my previous point.
But, teams don't seem to care about it anymore. They'll just put the team wherever they can get the land.
But to my previous point, if you build a winner,
Yeah.
a consistent winner, people will go.
Yeah.
During that 2012 RG3 year, people weren't bitching about the traffic as much. People weren't bitching about going to the games.
Yeah.
They were packing the house and caught up in the excitement and the buzz, just like people are caught up in the excitement here.
Right. What do you guys got coming up tomorrow morning? What's the plan?
I mean, I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about this.
Thanks. I couldn't figure that one out. anything in particular that you're excited for? Anybody? Like, let me ask you this. This is the last question I'll ask you on the way out. If you could book anybody tomorrow outside of one of the owners, like, yeah, if you could get Magic Johnson on the show, that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But not non-ownership group. You could talk to one person tomorrow. Who would it be?
Sam Howell.
Okay.
Would you want to talk to Sam Howell? It has nothing to do with the ownership.
Sure.
But once we get beyond this ownership, we're going to quickly move into training camp. And what is the number one thing people are talking about?
Sure.
Sam Howell, Chase Young. So, yeah, I'd want one of those two guys because I think that once we get beyond this joy, this euphoria here for the next couple of days, well, now it's going to be like, can this team contend? Where does this team fit? Are they a playoff contender? Is this Ron Rivera's last year? So I'll go straight to the quarterback.
That's not a bad one. I just think players, like Sam Howell is so young, he doesn't have any idea about any of this stuff.
I don't need to ask him about this.
Chase would be interesting, though, because Chase was a Dan guy.
Yeah.
Like, they had a relationship. So Chase Young I'd be interested in.
Who would be your dream guy?
I feel like Doug Williams. We actually are going to have Mark Rippon on the show next week.
Doug is always good.
So, like, someone who has seen it at its best, someone who's seen it through its worst, someone who is invested in the future. I want that perspective. And we actually are going to have Rippon on next week. We're going to have Don Van Natta on tomorrow. So, like, there's some interesting different angles. But I do think current players like Terry or John Allen, I think, would be interesting because they've been here long enough to kind of have a feel for this fan base in a way that, like, all Howell knows is people are hoping he's really good.
That's true.
So,
but I feel like, I'm kind of working to that radio tease in the brain. Like,
hey,
guess who we have on tomorrow? Sam Howell. That's going to get people to check it out.
That is 100% true.
He may be a dud, but the tease is effective.
Let me say this. Sean DeBarbieri, Gene Medina, Charlie, all the Commanders PR staff. If y'all are listening and you want Sam Howell on the show tomorrow, I will take him. I will just say that. JP Flaim and the Junkies, 6 to 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Appreciate you coming on, man. All right, we'll see those guys tomorrow morning. We get back, you'll hear a little bit more from Josh Harris here on The Hoffman Show.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.